What does a psilocybin and bufo retreat look like? Let's go ahead, let's get into it. Hi everybody, my name is Jill. Welcome back to the Journey Sage. And this is a channel where I talk about psychedelic assisted psychotherapy to help people with issues with PTSD, anxiety, and even depression. And today I want to talk about a absolutely beautiful 21-minute documentary that I found on the LA Times that talks about two first responders who decided to go do some medicine, psychedelic medicine, to help them with their particular issues. And I think the very first thing that stood out, the gentleman who was one of the participants, he really explained via his behavior what PTSD is like. I mean, this man was sleeping in a little place above his house, like he hadn't actually been in his house for 2 years. He was struggling. You could see it on his face. You know, in my memoir, sometimes I get criticized for the amount of cursing that I did in the beginning of the book, and it always kind of makes me smile. It is very challenging to explain how devastating PTSD is, how debilitating it is, how angry you are at yourself for not being able to kind of get over things. And that anger spills out everywhere, and that disappointment in yourself spills out everywhere. So it always cracks me up when people are like, well, you know, it was a good story, but there was just a little too much cursing. You know what? Go talk to somebody who is in the midst of a PTSD crisis and you might get some spicy talk going on there. So I thought the documentary did a very nice job with both participants. I just happened to really focus on the male participant, showing how kind of desperate they were for a solution. I mean, first responders see an inordinate amount of death, destruction, sadness. So it completely makes sense that they're going to have some residual feelings and some PTSD and depression and anxiety because of it. So the second thing that I liked about the documentary is that even though it was relatively short, it showed a beautiful, clean place. This is obviously some sort of resort. It showed the opening sequence where folks kind of sit down and talk about their intentions. The facilitator used a drawing exercise, which can help people loosen up because it's hard to kind of talk about your stuff. But if you get to do a little bit of art to kind of show what your subconscious is showing and thinking about, it can be very helpful. I've done art in retreats. I did a really great activity after a ceremony where I got to kind of draw out what I saw during the journey. That was a beautiful, beautiful activity. So whenever there's art involved, I think it is a really nice modality to get people to talk about things that are a little bit kind of tough to talk about, especially with people that you've just met because you just flew into this place, and I'm not exactly sure where the place was, but you've just shown up, you're meeting these people, you don't necessarily want to spill all your guts, so drawing kind of helps. Then what it did is it showed an actual psilocybin mushroom journey. They had the mushrooms crushed up. It looked to me like they did a little bit of lemon tech. Lemon tech kind of breaks down the psilocybin a bit so that your stomach doesn't get quite as upset if you tend to have kind of an upset stomach. I do. I get a little nauseated if I have too much mushrooms in my system. I'll usually do a lemon tech and actually strain out the mushroom body. I'm not exactly sure if they did that, but it looked to me like there was a lemon tech. And so you saw the people go ahead, the two first responders, take the medicine, lie back on their mats. They had blankets, they had eye masks, and you could see from the video there were a good number of facilitators there. It wasn't like one person was running this medicine ceremony. There were a number of facilitators, and you want to make sure, if you're looking at retreats, the ratio between facilitators and participants. Because, and this was another thing I liked that they showed, the female participant in the midst of her mushroom journey, she had a very, very somatic emotional reaction, and she started screaming. You know, that can happen. When you are releasing a lot of emotion, you can respond in a variety of ways. And the documentary showed a facilitator going to her, helping her in whatever she needed at the time. Again, the camera didn't get too close, so we didn't want to violate her privacy. At least that's what I think the documentary folks didn't want to violate her privacy. But it was clear to me that there was good facilitation there, because when she had that emotional outburst, facilitators were there to help her. And then after that medicine ceremony, the documentary interviewed these two first responders, and they were able to kind of talk about a sense of relief, a sense of understanding that there is hope and things aren't as bad as they seem, that they were kind of stuck or trapped. One, the male participant said like his mind kind of got rinsed out a little bit. I say all the time that a mushroom journey kind of gets rid of the cobwebs and lets me see things more clearly. And that was very evidenced here. And then I was surprised. I kind of thought the documentary would lead us to a second psilocybin journey, and instead it led us to a bufo journey. So bufo is a short-acting psychedelic, very powerful. Very often you lose a sense of who you are. It's like a ego. I don't really like the term ego death. You kind of just lose a sense of yourself. You just have to kind of go with it. Bufo is the secretion from the Colorado toad. There's another name for that toad, but I will butcher it. It is poisonous, so you have to be really careful. That's why it gets smoked. The synthetic of bufo is 5-MeO. For those people who are like, why are all these different psychedelics? Both of them you go ahead and smoke. And what you saw was the facilitator showing a participant how to breathe in the bufo smoke, because you have to kind of hold it in your lungs for a little bit. I'm a big giant nerd with bufo or 5-MeO. I actually hold my nose so that I don't breathe any of that DMT out of my system. But they showed that. They showed the facilitator explaining how to breathe. Then they showed a participant taking the bufo, and you could see the two facilitators. It was so lovely. The two facilitators holding him, putting his eye mask on, and gently laying him down onto the cushion. That is how it has been for me every single time I have done either bufo or 5-MeO. My facilitators have always made sure that as I went into that enhanced state, I was protected. I didn't just fall back. I had people helping me. And so the response to the bufo, you saw them smiling. You saw people with that kind of glow of, oh my gosh, the world is a different place than I thought it was an hour ago. And bufo the bufo experience after psilocybin can be incredibly opening. The reason why people don't do bufo first is because it's so dramatic, and it is that kind of ego dissolving thing that can freak people out. You have a psilocybin journey or two first so people can get used to an enhanced state. And then if they choose, it's always a choice. If they choose to do an additional psychedelic like bufo, that's where things kind of get a little bit higher in terms of the enhanced experience. I find that if your nervous system is ready for it, and if you have a lot of support, that using a variety of medicines after each other can be incredibly, incredibly healing. For me, it's like it's like training for, a marathon or something where you just keep on adding miles and you keep getting better and better and better. Adding on psychedelics with me, adding on psychedelic medicines kind of in a row, absolutely helps me get stronger with fighting different traumas that I've had. And so it's a legitimate strategy. It is not we're just kind of gonna go do this for fun. It's a legitimate, we're gonna start off with some mushrooms, and then we might do some hape, which is just tobacco, or we might go full on and do some bufo for some real PTSD healing. So I was kind of impressed that they showed that, because usually showing people smoking a pipe might give the viewer kind of a bad impression of psychedelics. But that's actually how it's done, and how it's done safely. Because remember, bufo is poisonous. Do not eat bufo. I'm not a doctor, but I know that. All right, so with that said, go check it out. It's only 21 minutes. I thought it was beautifully filmed and shows another version of a retreat that I thought was highly ethical and very helpful to the participants. So if you want to hear more about my story, healing PTSD in a therapeutic way, my memoir shows kind of the whole year-long process of healing my PTSD with MDMA therapy. If you're interested in these kind of retreats, I'm actually running a psilocybin retreat in October, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've got all my activities ready. I have amazing facilitators, and the ethical practices that you see in this video, that's how my retreat's going to run too. So I love seeing these really good depictions of really ethical and well-meaning and helpful healing environments. So with that said, go check out that video, and until next time, take care.